Thanks, Sabrina. And hopefully we'll get Burley back in. But
Yes, come
I
in.
thought we'll carry on with the
Go
health
on, carry on.
chitter chatter on health today. 21st October was the World Iodine Deficiency Disorder Prevention Day. Now, it's called Iodine Deficiency Disorder and not just disorders, actually, because it's actually a whole big spectrum of conditions that can take place if you have a deficiency of this trace element called iodine. So it's very important for us in our system because humans cannot produce iodine. So the only way we get iodine is from the diet, and we need to get it from somewhere. The thing is, because of the depletion taking place in the environment, because all the iodine has actually been because of the water, it's just gone down into the sea. And the soil is deficient in iodine, the plants are deficient in iodine, and the animals that eat the plants are deficient in iodine. So there's a lot of deficiency of iodine by itself. And therefore, it's necessary for us to have an additional source of iodine, and that comes from fortified salt. So it's important for us, though we keep telling people, cut down your salt. Yes, you need to do that because you want to cut down on heart disease and high blood pressure. But salt is also fortified with iodine, and that amount of salt that we require per day will give you the adequate amount of iodine. In fact, if you keep in mind, how much iodine do you require per day is something that can be put on a tip of a pin. So it's that little, just a small amount of iodine is required per day, but we require it every day. So therefore, we need to take something. So that's the reason why salt is fortified. The salt is something that we take on a regular basis. That's the reason why we add iodine to salt so that you get your adequate dose of iodine. So why is it called iodine deficiency disorders? What is that whole big spectrum? We know that deficiency of iodine will cause that goiter, that enlargement of the thyroid gland can lead to hypothyroidism. And I made one sip earlier on how do you recognize signs of hypothyroidism. But goiter is just one of the tip of the iceberg. There are many more things that can happen as a result of deficiency of iodine. One can be deficiency in hearing. Impaired hearing can be one of the signs of deficiency of iodine. Mental impairment, what they say is your IQ can drop by as much as 13 points because of deficiency of iodine. So it's very important that we take, and these are irreversible conditions. So once the damage is done, then you cannot say, I'll take iodine and undo the damage. No, it doesn't work that way. So you need to make sure that you prevent iodine deficiency disorders. You can have muscle stiffness, you can have stunted growth, both mental growth can be affected as well as physical growth can be affected. If it happens, if there is deficiency of iodine during pregnancy, per day we require around 150 micrograms, very small amount, 150 micrograms of iodine. But during pregnancy, the requirement increases around 220 micrograms during pregnancy. During lactation, if the mother is breastfeeding the baby, she requires even more amount of iodine. So at that time, if she doesn't get adequate amount of iodine, there will be deficiency of iodine for the mother and for the child. And that's where problems occur. In pregnancy, there is deficiency of iodine, it can lead to abortions. So it is that harmful. So you need to make sure that the mother has adequate amount of iodine right through pregnancy. It can lead to congenital anomalies. There was a time where we would get a lot of babies who had a condition called cretinism. That is because that's a time there was the deficiency was quite marked. Even now, we had done a study in the state of Goa to find out what is the deficiency of iodine in our children. And we found around 15% of the children who are going to schools had deficiency of iodine. And some of them had enlargement of the thyroid gland, which is the goiter. Though it was much smaller than what we used to see otherwise, you have huge goiters, that is not seen, but we do see deficiency of iodine. And therefore, we always advise people to make sure that you take a diet that is rich in iodine. You can get it from your fish, etc. So fish food, seafood does give you iodine, but that is still not enough. Sea salt, people say, will give you the iodine. Yes, we did a study on sea salt to find out how much iodine was there in that sea salt. And we found it contains on an average 7 parts per million. The requirement is 15 parts per million. The salt that you take, the iodized salt that you take, will contain a minimum of 15 parts per million, because that's the requirement you need per day for the recommended daily allowance for you per day for your daily functioning. And so therefore, my advice to everybody, fight iodine deficiency disorders, advise people to take iodized salt, fight the myths that are surrounding iodized salt, and make sure that everyone has an adequate amount of iodine such that you remain smart and you don't have all these problems related to iodine deficiency. So that's the sip for the day. Stay healthy.
Thanks, doctor. Yes, of course, with your sip, we will stay healthy. And I think now maybe our magicians would have some questions also now. So if anybody has,
I'm happy to take them.
What
for a
about
long time, we haven't had a question answer session. So maybe we
doctor?
have a little time today. Since
What about Himalayan salt?
Sorry?
Himalayan salt.
Himalayan salt.
that
If it is like fortified with iodine, then yes, it's fine. If not, then the Himalayan belt is actually deficient in iodine, and so it could be a problem. So if it has, you need to check how much iodine is present in that. If it's fortified with iodine, then yes. If not, then it could be deficient in iodine. The rock salt that we get, which we use for pickles and curries in Goa, that's the problem in Goa. A lot of people have these, despite having enough iodized salt. We still have deficiency, and the reason for that is that we are using other kinds of salts for certain food items. So for pickles and salted fish, etc., it has the rock salt or the sea salt, which has a deficiency in iodine. The other reason why we have deficiency is because people cook food again and again. So that iodine is volatile, and so if you repeatedly cook your food and heat your food, the iodine goes away, and so your food is deficient in iodine.
Yeah,
that's interesting to know, doctor. We never realize it.
Yeah.
Reheating food causes a deficiency of iodine. Okay.
Yeah.
So how much, doctor, how much of salt per day will give us the amount of iodine that we require?
So you advise less than 1 teaspoon of salt. So
Okay,
that is the amount, for all the food items that you're going to take. Okay, so you don't add salt. We try to tell people don't add salt. Don't keep a salt can on your table and then add salt to your food. But the amount of salt that is there, that is actually adequate for you. So
because people with high BP have been told to cut down on their salt.
Yeah, they're told to cut down on salt. They can cut down on the salt. So we did a study on the amount of iodine present in the iodized salt, and it is more than that 15 parts per million. 15 parts per million is the minimum amount. So if the salt is less than that, then that salt will not be allowed to be sold in the market. And the amount of iodine that is there in the iodized salt is more than that. It's supposed to be 30 parts per million when they're manufacturing it, and 15 parts when you're actually using it. So it's more than that. So don't worry, your iodine will come from the salt. Yeah.
Okay, so that means what we normally put in our curries or a little bit in the rice or whatever, I think that should be enough for the day.
Yes, it's calculated in that manner itself. So you require something in very less amount. If you overdo that, then you will have a problem. Excess of iodine also can cause a problem. But that's why we are fortifying salt, because we don't take salt in excess. We take salt just the right amount, and we take it every day. So that is the right item or vehicle to actually fortify.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, doctor. Excuse me.
Besides fish, what else can we have?
The fish, shrimps, potatoes contain iodine. So these are the food items that can contain iodine. But the best source is actually iodized salt.
Doctor,
the problem with fish is, the concentration of iodine is the thyroid. When we clean our fish, we cut off the head, and we generally tend to throw out that part. And so the iodine, though we take our fish, we still have, the concentrated part of iodine is not there. So it's not a reliable source of iodine in that sense. And therefore, iodized salt is something that you need to continue in your diet and to get your daily dose of iodine.
Hello, doctor. Excuse me. Yes. I only have gouty salt. I don't keep that iodized salt, because they say that when you use it, when you cook it, then all the benefits go. This is what I
No, that's not true. No, that's not true. That's not true. So we have done enough studies on these as well. We tested people for the levels of iodine. The iodine goes out in the urine, so we test the urine levels of iodine. And those people who take iodized salt will have excess amount of urine iodine. So we know that it is getting absorbed in the system. So that is not true what you're saying. What people argue is that the taste is different. But taste is an acquired thing. So I don't think, because the taste is, people really swear by using the sea salt for certain items. Yes, you can still use it for certain items. You really feel that taste is going to be really good from there, but make sure that you have an adequate amount of the iodized salt as well if you want to get your daily dose of iodine.
I see. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Here, some of the people who have high blood pressure, they don't take salt at all. One of my brothers, he's not taking salt at all in his food. So is it advisable?
See, it's not that salt. You need to decrease the amount of salt, and salt is also required for us in the sense that otherwise we require sodium. Your sodium levels may go so low that you will end up with hyponatremia and can cause a problem. So I can't say too much on online like this. We need to examine further, just make sure that he is still having adequate amount of salt somewhere. There may be some other source of salt that he is getting. No, because he must be taking some other food item that will give him the salt. You need to decrease salt. If you're having high blood pressure, having heart disease, definitely you need to decrease salt. But still the amount of iodine should be adequate for you. And we can check for thyroid problems, etc.
Thank you.
Doctor, what if we do this? What I'm doing, use the gouty salt and very little, because the servant is cooking, she makes salty. And so I told her to put very little. She puts hardly anything. But I keep it on the table. I keep this iodized salt on the table and put whatever is in. If I don't find it tasty, then I add it. Is it okay? There is very
all kinds
salt.
of permutations and combinations. I don't know how much you're using.
No,
so it's a difficult thing for me to say. And it also depends. So we don't advise people to keep salt on the table and use that, because that tends to make it more excess. You tend to put more salt that way and consume more salt, and the blood pressure could be affected. So it's always good to just put it in the cooking. Sometimes people put in the curry, don't put in the rice, and you kind of mix and match, and that's how you kind of have the adequate amount of taste. So one compensates for the other. And so that's the best way. But if you have formulated a different style, that's fine. But make sure that you do have your iodine dose and check yourself for everybody about the age of 60 need to make sure that they check their thyroid function test. So T3, T4, TSH you need to do and find out. If that is fine, that means you are getting your iodine somewhere or the other.
Okay. Thanks.
Olivia has raised her hand, doctor. Go ahead, Olivia.
Thank you. Doctor, can you, I use the sea salt. Doesn't sea salt have iodine added in it?
That's nonsense.
It does.
So it depends on which company is preparing it. You can have sea salt that is fortified with iodine as well. Sea salt by itself has iodine. Okay, sea salt by itself has iodine, as I said.
I can't hear. Sorry, I can't hear.
He said that 3 times that he's asking.
That's what I said again. Don't worry. So sea salt by itself has iodine around 7 parts per million. It's not adequate. Does not give you the recommended daily allowance. But depending on which company is preparing the sea salt, they may fortify it with iodine. And so you would probably get your iodine dose through that. So you just need to see which make it is and how much iodine is there.
So I have to check that.
You have to check that.
Yeah,
Let me know.
And if
I need
it's
to know
not
different countries,
there,
what they're doing, I need to know.
Yeah, and if it's not there, then I should have the other salt that has iodine in it.
But don't do it in addition to the sea salt. Your salt intake will be too much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so be careful.
So just use it in one thing, maybe.
Yes, you can use it in one thing if you want.
Yeah, like maybe in the curry.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much, doctor.
Most welcome.
Are there any? Yes, go ahead.
What about the salt that we get in Goa?
The sea salt.
Yeah.
The sea salt, yeah. So that's the sea salt I'm saying we tested, and we found that it had iodine. So all the iodine from the soil is actually washed into the sea. So sea contains iodine. So seaweed and anything coming from the sea, shrimps, your fish will contain iodine. So that will contain iodine, but it's not enough to meet your daily requirement. So it's 7 parts per million, whereas you require 15 parts per million. So you require a little more than that, and therefore that extra, a more reliable source of that iodine comes from your iodized salt. In fact, non-iodized salt is banned. Okay, it's not allowed. But here we still have it. People will use the thing that we use it for our coconut trees and all that kind of stuff. So that's why it is available. And we all know that Goans use the non-iodized salt, crystal salt, for certain cooking purposes like meat and pickles, etc. They will use the non-iodized salt. So that's fine. Nobody wants to come in between your cuisine, but make sure that you're aware of the fact that you require iodized salt and you require iodine, and that comes from iodized salt. And don't miss out on that. Get yourself tested will be a easy way to find out whether
Thank
you're
you,
getting an
doctor.
adequate source.
Thank
Yeah.
you, doctor.
Awesome.
Olivia? Okay.
Yes, doctor, I just checked the ingredients in my salt,
Yeah.
this one, okay, and it says a sea salt, potassium, iodide, sodium, magnesium, magnesium carbonate.
Yeah, but it has potassium iodide, no? So that's the iodine that is there.
Yes, so it
Yes,
does have it.
Yes, it
So
does have
don't
it.
have to worry. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because it's something that is known all through the world. You know, the iodine deficiency disorder is a big problem all around the world, and therefore the decision was taken to iodize salt, and therefore people, you know, there are rules that prevent you from selling salt that is not iodized, and therefore you would get iodized salt all over.
Thank you, doctor.
Most welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, doctor.